Do you work in children's home or fostering and feel sick of seeing kids let down by constant change? Well, today I'm talking with Rhiannon Hughes, care experienced, been in care in the UK and Spain, been through homelessness, and now she recruits for Children's Social Services nationwide. This is about what stability actually feels like to a child and what adults can do to become the ones who actually stay. So, Rhiannon, thank you so much for joining me this morning. It's a pleasure to finally get to have this conversation. It feels like it's been a little while building up to this point, doesn't it?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me, Andy.
That's right. I'm looking forward to it. So in the introduction there, I sort of described that you said that you entered the care system or the care sector at just 6 years old. Please, would you mind tell us your story and what did care feel like for you from the inside?
Yeah, so when I entered the care system, it was due to abuse and neglect from my parents. I think having been so young, it's quite hard, isn't it, to know what's going on with your surroundings. The kind of memory that I have is the police coming into our house with a social worker, us being removed from our parents, very stressful and traumatic experience where I'm the oldest of 5 kids, so we were all put in different cars. Nobody knew where they were going. Nobody knew the people that we were with. So it is very stressful being that young and kind of going through that. I kind of have been in and out of care. So obviously social services try to make sure that if there is a possibility to reconnect the family and it's safe to do so, then they do encourage that. But what, in my case, for example, my parents did was everything that was requested, so they got a house that was big enough for all of us because that was one of the main concerns was the housing. And then they worked on a plan to get a job and have appropriate clothing and put us into a school because we did lack all of that. But unfortunately, a couple of months into that, we were then again put back into care because our needs weren't met, basically.
Yeah. Okay. And so you described, so were you in foster care or were you in children's homes or where did you and your siblings kind of end up?
Yeah. So initially, what the system does is they tend to put you where they can is normally in an emergency foster home. So you have foster parents. So I do remember going and living with some strangers in their house. They also had kids themselves. It wasn't a very pleasant experience. So obviously we were all separated at the time, but their own kids did kind of pick on me quite a lot and I did feel bullied and basically I had to kind of do what they said because I was in their house. And then, the several times after that I went into care was in residential children's homes.
Right. So it sounds like your initial experience of foster care wasn't particularly positive. So did you feel, was it better for you? Did you find it better in children's homes rather than...
It's a hard question to answer really, because I was so young, having, I think, that emotional connection to being with my siblings and being separated from that automatically made it quite a bad experience, the foster parent side of things. And then after that, I was put into residential children's home. So I kind of know from the age of 8 up until I was an adult, I was in different children's homes. So that's more the side of it I know.
Yeah. Were you with siblings at any point throughout that journey or were you always separated?
Yeah. So I was in care in the UK and I was in care in Spain. So my parents won a court case against social services and we were put back into their care. And they decided to up and leave to sunny Spain. So they moved with no job, no house, no connection to Spain, no money. And we were put into care quite quickly over there as well because of the same kind of patterns. Initially, over there in Spain, we were put in an assessment home, so we were all together.
Right.
But as the years went on, it's quite hard to keep 5 siblings together at all times. Yeah. So my youngest sibling is my brother. He got adopted at 3 by a Spanish family. Yeah, and that was quite hard initially. So I was a teenager. I was probably like 13 when that happened. And it was you're taking him away from me, because I did feel like the mother figure. But now, I mean, they came to my wedding, and yeah, now we have a lovely relationship, to be honest. And they've given him the best life.
Yeah, that must have been an incredible amount of grief that you've experienced over that time period. As far as, siblings being separated, one, losing your parents. I think that's always difficult for people to understand, isn't it? That just because they didn't look after you in the right way didn't mean you weren't attached to them, and therefore there's a grief of losing the parents and everything you'd ever known, grief of losing your house, your siblings. That sounds like a horrific journey that you had to go on.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like you said, do forget about that emotional attachment that you have to your parents. As a kid, that's all you know, that's all you love. And up to a couple of years ago, I still had that confusion of kind of like hate because of what I'd been through, but love because they are my parents. And it's something that young people need a lot of support with. And yeah, it is very hard.
So when you look back, what did you need most from the adults around you? And we're not talking about the services or policies, but from the actual people.
Yeah, I would say consistency. Consistency is something that, keeps a young person engaged. It keeps them stable. I remember carers kind of coming to my door and knocking on my door and saying it's now time for dinner, and for whatever reason I wasn't feeling it. And in some homes, the way they address it was, no, it's dinner time, you have to come down. And in other circumstances, which I think would be the best option, would be to just give them some space, leave them some dinner out, try again in half an hour. So just having somebody that is willing to try several times, because having been through something as traumatic as that, it's not as simple as come down for dinner,
Yes. Well, this is one of the challenges, isn't it? That if the adults around you don't understand the journey that you've been on properly in an empathic way, their instinct is, well, you should come down to dinner because that's my rule. Whereas actually it's a case of, but why would I trust adults? It feels overwhelming. It feels unsafe. I don't know whether I can eat. The amount of challenges you've had, you needed somebody to be maybe more patient and more coming into your world rather than just expecting you to just jump into theirs, right?
Yeah. Just someone to show up, that's kind of, when you're in that situation, you get very used to adults leaving and coming and going, and it's about, when you're a child in care, I think one of the big things that you pick up is on people and how you can read people quite well and their language.
Yeah.
So I think having somebody that is willing to try a couple of times and doesn't show that frustration is very important.
Yeah, I try and teach people that. A lot of children in care, they've had to be, especially if you come from neglectful or abusive backgrounds, you have to get really good at a very young age of being able to read adults and their behavior. That doesn't always mean that you get it right, because it's going through a slightly, the lenses of the glasses that you're wearing have been slightly tinted in a particular direction, which can misinterpret it, which is why it's so important for adults to communicate in a very explicit way, going, I'm not frustrated with you, I'm frustrated because I want to connect with you and I don't know how to do it. And being very explicit about where that frustration comes from, because otherwise you're going to immediately jump to the frustrated with me, which is dangerous, which is, I'm not going to be eating with somebody who's a potential threat, even if the adult doesn't think they are. Yeah,
absolutely.
So it's quite an interesting journey being in both the care system in the UK and in Spain. What did you learn about was there a difference in feeling safe in those two environments? Was there a difference in the kind of the way that they approached care or that you can remember?
Yeah, so I couldn't remember residential childcare in the UK because I'd done the foster side of it with different parents. I mainly knew Spain, but when I came back, I worked in children's homes and it was very different. So over here, you have a more of a family environment and it is a house, and a lot of providers do accommodate children to a very high standard, and try their best to get their needs met. Where in Spain, it was more of they would put more children together. So the assessment home that we first went into, for example, I'd say there was probably about 50 kids in what seemed like a big hotel. And then as we transitioned out of that, we kind of went into a home where there was like 10 kids, and then again into another one that probably had 8 to 10 kids as well. So they are larger homes. I think the over in the UK, it's much more heavily regulated. So
Right.
obviously there's the private sector and the public sector, but there seems to be more children's homes in the private sector over here, where in Spain it is predominantly all governed by the council. So there isn't any private organisation
Right.
within the children's sector.
Just had a little bit more like your old orphanage type environments, a
Yeah,
little bit more, yeah.
yeah. And I definitely think, although we speak a lot about care leavers here in the UK and how they kind of drop off after they're 18. In Spain, that is very much worse. Well, it's worse, basically.
Right.
In Spain, you do literally get to 18 and they go, well, there's a hostel you can move into, or, there really isn't any help. So you kind of have to already have figured out what your next steps are by the time you're 17, because it's coming to an end. That support is just going to disappear.
Wow. And the care cliff in the UK feels bad enough. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's terrible. So
yeah.
are you fluent in Spanish then? Did you have to?
Hablo perfectamente español. Sí. Yeah.
Very, very impressive. I've always wanted to learn, but I never seem to be able to pick up languages very well. So I'm
Yeah,
a little bit
no.
jealous.
Unfortunately, it wasn't through choice. So obviously, when we
No.
moved there, I moved into a children's home and I didn't speak Spanish. So that was really, really hard. So I had to learn quickly, and there was a lot of bullying, and it was very, very tough to not be able to communicate with any of the adults, any of my peers. Yeah, very challenging. But I'm very grateful now. I try and show my daughter a little bit. But she's 3 and she's very stubborn, so it's a bit hard.
I wonder where she gets that from.
Especially when you talk in an English environment all the time, it's quite
100%.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What something you just said there kind of leads me on really well to the next question, because
Mm-hmm.
everything you've spoken about there, demonstrates you've got such a huge level of resilience, as we class resilience, that you've come through the other side, you've managed to survive that, cope with that, come out the other side and thrive as a result of that. So a lot of people talk about resilience like it is a compliment. But what do you think that resilience actually costed you over that time period?
I think I like to say survival mode. It is about the fact that you don't have any other option other than to survive. And when I lived in a children's home and I was a little bit older, I was able to, we share bunk beds in a room. We were all girls, and I lived with a young girl who had been through a lot of trauma as well. And she used to scream at night, all night she'd scream and she couldn't sleep. And I think having that empathy of knowing that there are always other people out there that could potentially have it a bit worse than you definitely helped me feel like I wasn't a victim, or I wasn't the only victim. And it definitely gave me a big understanding of empathy and on how to feel better about my circumstances, So I kind of like to look at it as, well, this happened today. That's rubbish. And I can be upset about it today, but tomorrow's a new day. And, you put another step forward and off you go. So, yeah.
I think it's that comparison of like there is other people worse off than me is a double-edged sword sometimes, isn't it? It can add perspective sometimes to kind of go, hey, it could be worse. But when you are going through really difficult times, sometimes that makes you feel like you don't have a justification for feeling the way you do. Going, well, there's other people who are worse off than me, and therefore I should not mind. I should not be struggling. I should not be finding this difficult. I think what you said there was really important. Yeah, it is okay to feel rough today, but tomorrow's another day. And I think putting that framework on it's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, it took me a long time to become a bit selfish. So I think, especially because I'm the oldest of 5 kids and everything that we've been through, I was always kind of the last person. I gave to everyone else. So it took me a long time to actually stand up for myself and be a little bit selfish. And that's given me the confidence now where I feel like I can achieve anything that I put my mind to.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Now, you also mentioned, obviously, in part of your journey, I'm assuming this must have been from maybe Spain then, that you mentioned homelessness after leaving care. What do you wish professionals understood about how quickly a young person can fall through the gaps once that support ends?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems are that you have carers come in and they do everything for you. So they'll cook you your dinner, they'll put on your laundry, they'll clean, because obviously if you're at school or you're out and about, that is the standards of the organisations. They're paying you to do a job, they expect the house to be nice and clean and everything done. I think not giving that independence to children that are actually going to leave the sector and probably don't have family to fall back on is a very important thing to be giving to them. Like this is how you change a light bulb. This is how you call and get Wi-Fi. This is how you apply for benefits. This is how you do your washing. This is how you cook. Even the simple tasks as cooking. I've worked with children leaving care that eat pot noodles every day because they don't know how to eat. And that's not really a healthy habit. And it should be coming from the time that they are in care and they do have that support as adults. Another thing is financially. So, I mean, over here, there seems to be more help in terms of getting on the universal credit or having benefits. But when I was in Spain and I went through homelessness, there was none of that, So I started working at a very young age. And I would clean glasses, or I would work in a bar, and I would take cash in hand. I would do anything to just survive. I think getting work is very important, and getting children to understand that they need to work to earn money. And if not, they need to go to college or to university in order to get a better career is something that we should all be trying to implement.
Yeah, it's that difficult, isn't it, as far as that managing the nurturing with boundaries that so many staff sometimes find difficult, that they're not mutually exclusive. It's not a case of they need people to guide them and teach them how to live, how to be independent, but recognizing that actually they're probably functioning at a lower emotional age because they've been in survival mode for the majority of their life. So they might take longer to learn or need more support than a typical child should. That doesn't mean they're not capable. And they might be more resistant to it because, hey, we're all lazy, right? None of us none of us throw the remote control away from our TV because we like getting up to change the channel. So like, it's not unusual. So unless there's a motivation and a kind of a connection, kids aren't going to engage in cooking and cleaning if they can avoid it, but recognizing the benefits and encouraging, is setting that in place.
Well, and kids that don't go to school or they stay in their room a lot, the staff team should be doing something to engage in that. That is what they're there for. They're not there to cook and to clean. They're there to kind of help the children get over this bad and rough patch that they're going through and understand a bit better that part of your life doesn't define who you are for the rest of your future.
And that, I suppose, leads into the next bit. So,
sorry, I'm doing very well here.
You are doing very well, yeah. So turning that lived experience into purpose, and that's it. You know, you've moved on to amazing things. And one of the reasons that I remember originally reaching out to you, because I saw that somebody with care experience was running, you know, a recruitment agency within the health and social care sector. And I just thought, right, that sounds important, because actually that's somebody who knows from the inside what a staff member should be like, that is actually helping put the right staff in the right place. But why recruitment? And why making staffing? Why did you make that your mission?
I feel like I'm gonna open up Pandora's box here. Gonna reveal all my secrets. So when I moved to the UK, prior to that, I owned a pub with my husband for 4 years. So we'd worked very well together. And we sold because we got married. We wanted to come and buy a house and have a child. So we moved back to the UK, and I didn't want to go back into working in bars. And I've always been very caring. So I went into doing a care role. So I did a bit of complex needs and kind of end of life care, which was very different for me, but I learned a lot. And then I went into helping children in residential homes on a bank, kind of bank staff. And then I got a full-time job as a kind of assistant manager for a supported accommodation company. And having transitioned from being a bank worker and a temp worker myself to then hiring bank staff because we were short of people on shift, I kind of put two and two together about how much money people were making and how little supervision there was on temporary staffing. So, they're literally filling shifts, filling gaps in your rota, but nobody's actually looking at the care plans and at what, if you have, even if they're temp, it's a regular member of staff, they should be having supervisions and appraisals, and we should be looking at how they are caring for that young person. So I opened up, Reese, my husband at the time, he worked as a recruiter for another company in Leicester. And we kind of went, why should we not do this ourselves? I felt very passionate about having staff teams that did want to make a difference and were also felt like I appreciated them. It wasn't just about filling the gaps. So sorry, I'm going long story short here.
No, that's good. Spot on.
Yeah. So I supplied the council with a lot of temp staff. And then they went onto a permanent basis, and something clicked there for me. And I thought, well, why am I doing temp if I'm so passionate about the sector? I'm so passionate about the recruitment. There's so many vacancies in the childcare sector. Why am I not looking to create that connection from the staff member to the young person and giving that young person a permanent member of staff? So now I have the luxury where people come to me and they say, I hear great things about you. I love your LinkedIn. Can we work together? I'm looking for a job. This could be career progression. Most of the people that I work with, it's either they've been burnt by their providers because they're working way too many hours than what they should be, or they are looking for a career progression. It's never because of the young people. And at times, someone could be like, you found me the best job, but I really can't say goodbye to this child, and I have to see it through. And that's okay. Like, I love that. It just means that you've built a connection and there is that rapport with the young person, and you are going to make a difference to that child's life.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wonderful point that you kind of found that purpose in your lived experience again has kind of informed you on taking it forward and setting yourself up as stand out in the sector a little bit, because it's that, as you said, there is so many places that I've worked at that have had that kind of perception that bank staff are just they're a fill-in, they just a temp, and the connection isn't there between the staff team and the individual, let alone the individual and the ability to build a relationship with the child as well. Have you ever encountered an adult or child's behaviour that has felt difficult, overwhelming, or challenging? Have you sometimes felt at a loss of what to do, or know that you didn't handle it quite right? People are complex and unpredictable, and their behaviour can be like the weather. We've all made the mistake of looking out the window and feeling safe to wear shorts, but 5 minutes later wishing for an umbrella. But what if, like a weatherman, you understood how humidity, temperature and pressure all come together to cause the weather, allowing you to better prepare, predict and respond, and prevent ever having a picnic ruined by a thunderstorm ever again? My book, called Targeting the Positive with Behaviours that Challenge, helps you to become the weatherman of behaviour. It provides you with a toolkit to increase competency, confidence, resilience and empathy, so you feel more assured about how to respond to distressed or dysregulated behaviours in others, including those affected by trauma, mental health, neurodiversity, learning disabilities or dementia. Build better connections, achieve de-escalation and improve outcomes for yourself and those you engage with my celebrated 6-stage target model, a step-by-step process to reduce distress for everyone. Discover my empowering, person-centered guide in Targeting the Positive, written by me, Andy Baker, available from online bookstores worldwide. Find a link in the description and order today.